The entities that our and other schools affirm, since they exist inherently in neither singular nor plural, in ultimate reality are without intrinsic being. They are like reflections. Producing their effects sequentially, eternal entities cannot be one. If each of their effects is different from the others, these entities can have no permanence. And also in the schools that say the uncompounded is cognized by wisdom that results from meditation, this selfsame object is not one, for it is linked with knowing instants that arise in sequence. If already known to earlier consciousness, it continues to be present to a later consciousness. The earlier consciousness becomes the later. The later too becomes the earlier. And if the uncompounded is not present in conscious moments earlier and later, this very uncompounded, you should know, is momentary, like consciousness itself. Should it arise by force of moments that occur in sequence one by one, it is not uncompounded. It is like the mind and mental factors. If you consider that in all these moments the uncompounded wholly on its own occurs, it must forever be or never be, for there is no dependence upon something else. What purpose does it serve to pin your fond beliefs on what is destitute of causal potency? What use for lustful girls to estimate the charms or defects of a neutered male? The person is not able to be pointed out as other than existing momentarily. It should be clearly noted that it has no true existence in the singular or plural. How can a pervasive thing be one? For it is linked with things in different places. Things extended likewise are not one. For instance, they can be both hidden and revealed. Joining or surrounding, or disposed with interstices, the particle that has a central place is turned exclusively toward a single particle. If you insist that this is truly so, though it must also face the other particles, how is it then that earth and water and all other things extend, or maybe they do not? If you say the sides that face the different particles are different, how comes it that the finest particle is one, a single entity devoid of parts? The particle, it's proved, does not exist inherently, and therefore it is clear that eyes or substance in the rest, the many things proposed by our and other schools, have no intrinsic being. The former are their nature, or they constitute them. The latter are the properties of particles, themselves the agents of all action. Universals and instantiated things are only their agglomeration. Consciousness arises as the contrary of matter, gross, inanimate. By nature, mind is immaterial, and it is self-aware. A mind that is by nature one and without parts cannot possess a threefold character. Self-awareness thus does not entail an object and an agent as real entities. Because this is its very nature, consciousness is apt for self-cognition. But how can consciousness cognize those things of nature foreign to itself? The nature of the mind is absent from non-mental things. How then could self-cognizing consciousness know other things? For you have said that known and knower are two different entities. According to the theory of the mental aspect, mind and object are in fact distinct. But since the aspect is akin to a reflection, it's by such means that things may be experienced. For those who disallow that consciousness is modified by aspects of non-mental things, there can be no perception of external objects. since they are not different from the consciousness considered to be one. The aspects in themselves cannot be manifold, and therefore it cannot be said that it is through their power that things are known. But since it is not separate from a manifold of aspects, consciousness itself cannot be one. If this is not the case, you must explain what you intend in saying that these two are one. The color white, you say, and other features, consciousness cognizes step by step. But owing to the speed with which this happens, foolish people think they are known at once. But when cognitions, such as those of words like lata, are produced at extreme speed, and therefore seem to be perceived at once, how is it that such words do not correctly manifest? In the mind that is exclusively conceptual, there is no sequence of cognition either. Since none of them remains for very long, cognitions are alike by virtue of their swift arising. Accordingly, there are no objects that are grasped sequentially, but like their different aspects, it is thus that objects are perceived, grasped all at once. Since it is the firebrand itself, mistaken in the instant as a wheel of fire, that clearly is perceived by visual consciousness, it's not the latter that connects the separate instants. Thus, the joining of these moments is the work of memory. The visual sense does not accomplish it, for sight does not perceive the object that has passed. All that is the object of our memory is dead and gone. It is not manifest. Thus, what is now appearing as a wheel of flame should not indeed be clearly seen. And if the claim is made that when a painting is beheld, the many mental states that apprehend its aspects arise together all at once, in that case, even the cognition of a single aspect, such as white, becomes a manifold array, with up and down and middle parts distinct. The finest particle of something white, that's one by nature and devoid of parts, appearing as it is to consciousness, that's something I have surely never seen. The five sense consciousnesses have observing aspects. These regard compounded things, and it is called the sixth that has the mind and mental factors for its object. And also in the texts of those outside the doctrine, consciousness does not appear as one, for it is said to observe entities that are endowed with sundry properties. Some say the aggregate of things is like the multicolored onyx stone. The mind that grasps it must be just the same, and as a single entity it cannot manifest. And also in the doctrine of the ones who say that objects and the senses that detect them are but gatherings of earth and other elements. There are no single things nor consciousnesses that accord with them. For those who say that sound and other things are by their nature sattva and the rest, consciousness cannot appear as one, for it perceives an object with a threefold nature. The thing is threefold, they will say, but consciousness is one. Now, does this mean perception is discordant with its object? But how, if so, can consciousness be said to grasp it? External things do not exist. It is the mind, they say, appearing variously while yet being permanent. But whether it arises all at once or in succession, it's very hard to say that consciousness is one. Of space and such like, names are all that mind experiences. Because these names consist of many sounds, 'tis clear that they're perceived as manifold. Even if it is allowed that there are some cognitions that appear without diversity of object, ultimately it is wrong to posit them. For thus defined, we see that they are disproved. Therefore, consciousness appearing variously at all times in accordance with the aspects of its object, this is inadmissible as something that is truly one. Within the mental stream, without beginning, through maturation of habitual tendencies, things manifest, yet these appearances are mirage-like and due to the delusion of the mind. This view indeed is excellent, but is this mind of theirs an ultimate existent? Or do they say that it is only satisfactory when left unanalyzed? This we shall consider. If consciousness is ultimately real, it must be manifold, or else its aspects are all one. Failing this, the mind and object are at variance, and there's no doubt that they diverge. If the aspects are not different, moving and unmoving parts and so forth, all are one. All must be in motion or at rest. It's hard to give an answer to this consequence. And even in the case of outer things, since these are not devoid of aspects, all such features are contained in one, a consequence that no one can gainsay. If you say cognitions are as many as the mental aspects, they can be examined like the partless particle, and it is hard to circumvent such scrutiny. If various aspects form a single entity, is not this the teaching of the sky-clad yogis? Variety is not a truly single entity, but is like various gems and other things. If various items form one thing inherently existent, how do they appear to us as various? For some are hidden, some are not. Now, how can they be so distinct? Since, they say, in consciousness itself there are no mental aspects, the mind, which in reality is aspectless, appears with aspects only through delusion. But if these aspects are without existence, how do we experience them so clearly? Indeed, there is no consciousness that from the aspects stands apart. Therefore, where there's nothing present, absent also is cognizing consciousness. Likewise, misery cannot be known as bliss, nor white cognized as something that's not white. Unmediated knowledge of the aspects is untenable. Because they are themselves not consciousness, these aspects are like blossoms in the sky and all the rest. What does not exist is without potency, unfit for aspects, like a horse's horns. Non-existence, thus, can have no power to cause cognitions that resemble them. But since these aspects are, and are indeed experienced, how do they relate with consciousness? Non-existent aspects cannot share the latter's nature, nor indeed can they arise from it. And if they are without a cause, how is it that they can arise sporadically? But if instead they have a cause, why are they not dependent nature? And if they don't exist, then consciousness itself will be devoid of aspect, like a sphere of purest crystal. Such consciousness is surely undetectable. It may be said that it is through delusion that they are cognized, but whether they depend upon delusion or arise by reason of delusion's power, such aspects are indeed dependent nature. No matter what we may investigate, a single entity cannot be found. And since there is no one, indeed there is no many either. A thing cannot exist unless it be in singular or plural. Aside from this, no other mode of being can it have. For singular and plural are mutually excluding contraries. Therefore, all these things possess defining features only in the relative. And if I thought that in their essence they existed truly, what would be the point of all my labors? Only satisfactory when left unscrutinized, subject both to birth and to destruction, possessing causal potency. Thus we understand the all-concealing relative. Satisfactory if not examined, based upon foregoing causes, things arise as though they were the cause's subsequent effects. Thus it's incorrect to say that in the absence of a true existing cause, the relative could not appear. And if the latter's cause is ultimately true, This you should indeed declare. By following the path of reasoning that's based upon the nature of phenomena, all other doctrines are dispelled. No room is left for false positions. It is not, it is both. If from all such statements one abstains, one cannot be the object of attack, despite the fervor of one's adversaries. Therefore, there is no such thing that ultimately can be proved to be. And thus the Tathagatas all have taught that all phenomena are unproduced. Since with the ultimate this is attuned, it is referred to as the ultimate. And yet the actual ultimate is free from constructs and elaborations. Production and the rest have no reality. Thus, non-production and the rest are equally impossible. In and of themselves, both are disproved, and therefore names cannot express them. Where there are no objects, there can be no arguments refuting them. Even non-production, entertained conceptually, is relative and is not ultimate. Because things are perceived, their nature also should appear to us directly. Then why do simple, uninstructed folk not see the nature of phenomena likewise? Their mental stream, beginningless, is governed by their false belief that things are real. All living beings therefore fail to see the nature of phenomena. Those who sound the nature of phenomena with reasoning that cuts through misconception and brings understanding know this nature. It is known by powerful yogis also, through their clear, direct experience. Leave aside the subject specially defined in philosophic texts. For it is to the things known commonly to all, from scholars down to women and their children, that all these predicates and reasons are perfectly applied. How could we counter otherwise such charges as the subject is unreal? Things as they appear I do not negate, and therefore, unconfused, I may set forth both predicate and evidence. It should be inferred, therefore, that seeds that by their kind accord with what appears, and likewise with all thoughts of things and of non-things, are lodged within the mind from time without beginning. And these do not occur by power of outer things, for outer things do not exist. Indeed, the inherent existence of such things has been extensively refuted. They appear successively and therefore are not random. In not occurring all the time, they are not permanent. Therefore, in the manner of habituation, consciousness's first arising issues from a moment of concordant kind. Thus, the views of permanence and nothingness are far from the teaching of this text. When causes cease, effects will follow, as plants derive from shoots and shoots from seeds. The wise, who know that in phenomena there is no self, become accustomed to this absence of intrinsic nature, and thus they effortlessly spurn defilement that arises from mistaken thought. Since entities of cause and fruit within the relative are not denied, all the principles of both samsara and nirvana are posited without confusion. Since phenomena of cause and fruit are in this manner posited, the pure accumulations also are acceptable within this scriptural tradition. When a cause is pure, pure is the result that comes from it. And modes of discipline are pure that issue from a proper view. Likewise, from an impure cause, impure results will also spring. Just as it is from false views, sexual misdemeanors and the rest arise. Since real existence is disproved by valid reasoning, to think that things exist in truth is to have false understanding, as when one trusts to things seen in a mirage. And therefore, on account of this, all practice of transcendent virtues, like every action that arises from belief in I and mine, will have but little strength. But from the view that things have no such real existence, great results proliferate. for they arise from fertile causes, like the shoots that spring from healthy seeds. All causes and effects are consciousness alone, and all that this establishes abides in consciousness. On the basis of the mind alone, we should know that outer things do not exist. On the basis of the method set forth here, we should know that mind is utterly devoid of self. Those who ride the chariot of the two approaches, who grasp the reins of reasoned thought, will thus become adepts of the Mahayana, according to the sense and meaning of the word. Vishnu, Ishvara, and others do not taste the cause of the abiding in the measureless. And also those who are the crowns of all the world are thoroughly without a taste of it. This perfect state, this pure ambrosia, alone enjoyed by Buddhas, those thus gone, who are themselves results of pure compassion, none but they can taste of it. Those who have the mind to follow this tradition will strongly feel intense compassion for those who have taken the mind to trust to tenets of mistaken teachings. Those rich in wisdom who perceive to what extent all other doctrines lack essential pith, to that extent will feel intense devotion for the Buddha, who is their protector.